Hi and welcome back to Cheeky Crypto. Today, guys, we're going to be jumping back down into the charts for BTC. With the monthly close happening today, it's important that we actually reflect on this data and see what we think is likely to happen. As I get into this video, if you find it useful and informative, hit the like button. I really do appreciate that. If you happen to be new to the channel, why not go ahead and subscribe? Tap the bell, select all notifications, and in doing so, you'll be kept up to date with everything that we do here at Cheeky Crypto. Okay. If you haven't yet joined us in Discord, links in the description down below. Fantastic community talking crypto 24/7. It's completely free and I don't think you'll be disappointed by what you find down there, so why not go ahead and check it out. Okay, let's get into this. Right, Bitcoin paired up with USDT. This is the monthly chart. There's been lots of talk around EMAs, SMAs and monthly closes and what might happen if we were to close below the I think the 20 or the 50. Let me just check that blue line. Yeah, the 20 EMA there. So basically what we're looking for here, now I don't usually use these, they aren't something that I really reference all too much because these moving averages, they are old data, they just reflect what's happened previously and they just kind of lag behind quite a bit. I actually prefer to look at the stochastic RSI as it gives us a little bit more of the intel. Now obviously we take a look at this, if I just expand this up a little bit, you can see that we're currently just above this moving average. Okay, so we take a look at this, right, the moving average as of today is basically 38,610. Okay, so that's kind of the number that we might want to be thinking about closing above, as we have done for the last few months. Okay, so closing above 38,611 or 10 is anyway that is an average. It's going to change and fluctuate a bit, so that's kind of what we're looking for. Okay, so that's kind of what we're thinking. Now if you don't close above there, then essentially people are then saying that we're probably going to come back down towards this $20,000 to $25,000 55, right? And it's an interesting kind of take on it. History I think shows this. If I don't even have the history on this chart, one sec, let me actually move over to the other Bitcoin chart here. There we go, that's better. So we can see here that you were basically coming in here, we closed, we moved right down into that 55, right? Or this is actually a 50, but you get the idea. We move on up. Now, obviously it can be fast, you can move down, wick down, move up, whatever. I don't think we're going to move down that far, right? We take a look at the kind of drops that we've seen previously. These are very, very significant drops. These are bear market drops, okay? So if we were to do this, basically we are saying to ourselves that we are going to be dropping down into a bear market, or this has been a bear market the entire time. And it would still actually stay within its structure of a fourth wave from an Elliott wave theory perspective, but it would be very, very difficult to kind of recover from it quickly. This is not going to be a scenario where we have something like the pandemic crash of 2020, for example, where you go down really quick, then you move on back up. I don't think that would be the case. So I think it would be more like 2017, where we kind of stay down here for several months and then slowly work our way back up again. And I think it would be a very long time before we start talking about moving up progressively. And this is a big issue on some of the analysis that I've been talking about. Specifically, if I come back over to my chart here, where we're talking about moving up to the minimum threshold of about $79,000 up to about $108,000 based on the July lows down here as our low point. Okay, this being our fourth wave low, and all of this is actually a running flat correction, right? An irregular correction. So under those kind of circumstances, we actually think that going down lower than this low, it would completely break this structure and it would become an expanding flat correction, okay? So we'd end up going down lower. And it's possible that we do visit this zone. And again, I've actually marked out down here the area that everyone seems to be really focusing in on, which is the gap that was left behind. $20,000, etc. This also has something that's never happened in Bitcoin's history, right? So when we come back here and we throw these on, right, we have to acknowledge a couple of things. It's never happened in history of Bitcoin that you would break down to the previous all-time high of $20,000, right? So we have that up here, like 20,000, is it? 19,666 according to Bitstamp, right? So if we break down all that way and we start thinking about moving down, that's never happened before, where we've gone hit that kind of low point, right, where we basically go into the previous all-time high. That's never happened in the history of Bitcoin before. In the same way, we could argue that closing below this 20 EMA, and moving down to a 50 or 55 EMA, it hasn't. If we've closed below that 20, we've moved down, right? Every time in history we've moved down to this pink line. until it doesn't, of course. In the same way that we had the Gaussian channel, the first time you close inside it, then you closed above it. There's things change, right? It's a small history here. And just because it's happened twice before doesn't necessarily mean it's going to happen for the third time. There's not a huge amount of data set here. With that being said, though, I think we should be open to the idea that it does happen, okay? History is there to kind of teach us and to educate us on things that have happened historically, but we should also acknowledge things that are different this time around. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring the stochastic RSI back into play here. Okay, it's important that we understand. So actually, I will put those EMAs back on. There we go. Where we were at those particular moments in time. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll just jump on back to here. Okay, so our monthly stochastic RSI is oversold at this particular point, right? So we closed below the 20 and we moved down to the 50 and we were oversold the entire time. Okay, we come back up here, we can see here that we got the stochastic RSI oversold and we closed and we stayed oversold until we moved on out. Okay, right now we are heading on to this 20 EMA, we are oversold. We can stay oversold until we move on out of here. Okay, so it's possible from a stochastic RSI looking at the history that we follow the same pattern. So when we come up into our weekly, okay, let me get the dates on these before we do that. So we are talking the 1st of November 2018, the weekly chart. So if we just shoot this back a little bit, we can find 1st of November right up here, okay? So if we take a look, we're just about going into the oversold area and we pull back down, okay? So again, we're correcting down. Now, our current position on this is very much the same. We've got to pull the weekly chart down. Therefore, this does make it a little bit more probable that if we were to close below it, we're going to see a significant drop, okay? We should be very aware of that. As I come back to the monthly here, we'll check the 2000 and where is it? Right up here. So this is basically 2014. So it's the 1st of September 2014. If we bring this back up into our weekly and we take a look at this over on, where are we? Did I say it was, let me find it. I've lost it now. Where's it come back? Here we go. So 1st of October. So let's go ahead and check 1st of October. Let me find that. 1st of October 2014. Okay, so we're right in here. Let me just expand this up a little bit for a sec. So find you right about here. Okay, so we're again oversold and we moved up before pulling back down. So again, we have that actual overbought to oversold area on this stochastic RSI here. Basically in October, so we moved up, moved down during that month, right? So essentially, yeah, we were in a slightly different position on the weekly back in 2014, but we had to progressively move up before pulling back down. As you can see, the price went up and then pulled down before we reached the bear market low. And that's one thing that is consistent with both of these scenarios, right? What is it? It is a bear market low. So whatever happens here, if we do close below that 20 EMA and we go to a 55 EMA, then essentially what we'll be talking about in that regard is a bear market low situation, right? So that would be the actual low point of all of this entire corrective move that's going on at the top here would be achieved. So that is, again, something that we've seen in history, right? If you close below the 20 EMA, you go down to the 50 EMA. And in doing so, at that particular point, it was the lowest point of the bear market in 2015 and also the lowest point in 2018, okay? So if we were to see the same thing again, it would basically be a catalyst for the next big run to the upside, essentially bringing in what would therefore be the bottom of this corrective phase, and we can call it a bear market at that point, because I think absolutely categorically if Bitcoin goes down lower than the previous low, if it goes down to $25,000 for example, then that absolutely categorically to me is a bear market situation. Significantly dropped in value from 69k. The percentages are not just hovering around 50% or 56%. They are now hovering in the 60s to 70s, and that absolutely in my mind would constitute us calling it a bear market, okay? From the all-time high back when was that, in September? So yeah, essentially that's kind of what we're thinking about here, right? So although I do not use these EMAs, I do not use them as a guidance for everything that I talk about on this particular channel. You can of course look at the history of this and make sense of them, but they are lagging indicators, and I much prefer to just use the momentum indicator, which is also indicating of retracements. Now, as I come on down into our hourly chart, just to kind of reflect on what I'm thinking is going to happen anyway, as I said, we've got the number, right? We know what we want to avoid for that that monthly close above the 20 EMA. But essentially, I am thinking we've still got this correction down to 36, 37 and a half. This is the end of a corrective zone before we bounce up. Again, we've got this hourly chart looking for this correction down. So today's close is going to be key. As we come into the 4 hourly, plenty of room to grow. 8 hourly needs a correction. And the daily chart slap bang in the middle here. So plenty of room in either direction there for that. Now, the weekly does need to come down and the monthly is oversold in the same position that it was at before the bull run started, okay? But again, when Binance doesn't have huge amounts of data here, if we were to take a look at this from where we were previously, we can actually take a look that we're oversold for a period of time. And, you know, we actually haven't been down in this over area for too long. Now, obviously, to compound this, we should also be aware of what else is going on in the background, right? Because if we come over to Glassnode data, we've seen over 4 million BTC leave the exchanges this year so far, and that is more Bitcoin. That's 4 million more leaving than going on. That's a net difference, and that's a significant shrinkage of the supply of BTC. Again, this is something that we can see inside our data. So if this is our final pullback down into bear market lows, this is the fantastic opportunity to kind of get into, right? If Bitcoin goes down into those low levels and drops below $30,000, I think essentially I will be on a buying spree, because that will basically be where I want to buy. I want to buy at these bear market lows, and that's exactly where we'll be. Okay, so I think essentially if that does happen, that is not a time to be fearful. That is a time to be greedy, in the sense that you want to be buying up so many different projects that you think are going to be successful for that next run to the upside. Okay, what we don't want to necessarily do is panic sell when you're right down at the bottom like that. Okay, because chances are, as we've looked at previously, the 2 bear market lows are under the same circumstances: close below the 20 EMA, move down to a 50 EMA, and then bounce up quite significantly. It takes a while, it takes a couple of months or so, but this would put Bitcoin in a very, very interesting position by the kind of, you know, probably all by autumn, late summer, autumn time. And essentially, I think what that'll mean is we're going to see very significant price surge. So what we have is shrinkage of supply, okay? Whales are accumulating. Okay, so we've got the net position change over 4 million, nearly 4.2. Actually, I think it's greater than that now, because we had another 100,000 leave yesterday. So 117,000 Bitcoin left yesterday. The day before is now 119,000. So slightly increased, right? So the data has fluctuated ever so slightly here, day on day. But essentially, I think we're now tracking about 4.2 million Bitcoin since January. Okay, that's gone, and we know where it's gone because we can come in and we can check where the whales have been stacking it up, and it's right inside those whales that have more than 1,000 BTC in their wallet. They basically went up very significantly there. So essentially, the whales have been buying it. If your Bitcoin drops down to those low levels, even more is going to leave the exchanges. There's going to be a huge multi-year low, and there's going to be one hell of a run towards the end of the year, in my opinion. Because, again, the main 2 things that really matter: supply and demand. Control the supply, or get that supply shrunk down, which is what's been going on, has been going on since January this year for BTC, and then bring the demand in. The demand will come in once you actually kind of reach that bottom area of a correction. Now, for me right now, $34,000 looks like the end of a corrective move that I can see. We'd have to move up before moving back down. This is also something that doesn't really get spoken about too much. You're not talking about a straight line down to these low levels if we were to close below the 20 EMA, for example, on that monthly chart. So essentially, you would have a few bounces in that move going down, and as such, you would find that we'd have to move those stochastic RSIs accordingly. So the recent correction that I can see, we're talking about 36, 37 and a half, a push up, and then we'll probably pull back down to 34. From 34, we'll probably bounce again, and then we'll move down a little bit lower, a little bit at a time, until we kind of get into that bear market low situation. As you can see here, a 1-to-1 ratio puts us here. Now, of course, as I said, it's possible that we're actually in a much bigger kind of corrective play than maybe I was kind of originally thinking, but I don't necessarily think that is the case. We'd also have to kind of articulate this move very differently, but essentially, you know, it could be some kind of big expanding flat correction. I've spoken about that taking us down towards $26,000 in the past, although I do not think that's necessarily probable. But again, we could also look at this entire move here as a giant A wave down, this being a giant B wave up, and now we're breaking down from here into those low ranges. It's also very, very possible. Okay, so we want to kind of keep an eye on things and understand what we think is most probably going to happen, both short term, medium, and long term. Long term, this could be an absolutely fantastic opportunity to accumulate in these really low zones. But again, nothing is set in stone until we see what happens today and whether we close below $38,610. Guys, I'm going to leave the video there. If you have found this useful and informative, hit the like button. I really do appreciate that. If you happen to be new to the channel, why not go ahead and subscribe, tap the bell, select all notifications, and in doing so, you will be kept up to date with everything that we do here at Cheeky Crypto. With all that said, done and out of the way, I hope everyone has a fantastic day, and I'll catch you all in the next one.